Hello, Professor Markin. Welcome to my presentation on Kantian ethics and corporate responsibility. I shall explore the moral implications of corporations emitting excessive greenhouse gases and how we can evaluate these actions using Kant's categorical imperative. Let's get started. In Unit 5, I learned about utilitarianism as a philosophical concept that declares its quantitative goal of making a decision that leads to the happiness of maximum people. It focuses largely on the consequences of actions. I also studied about its shortcomings. So Kant's categorical imperative has the answers to the ethical gaps which utilitarianism fails to fulfill. Kantian ethics is a moral philosophy developed by Immanuel Kant. It focuses on three main ideas. The first one is duty, which is doing what's morally right simply because it is the right thing to do, not for reward or punishment. The second one is intention, which says that the reason behind an action matters more than its outcome. And the third one is moral law. That means our decisions should be able to be applied to everyone in every situation as universal principles. The key idea is that morality is about acting right, not about consequences, personal gain, or rewards. As an Indian, this resonates with me completely as this philosophy is discussed in immense detail in the Bhagavad Gita, the holy book of the Hindus. So, is it morally right for corporations to prioritize profit? Now let's consider corporations. Many emit large amounts of greenhouse gases which contribute to global warming, extreme weather events, and environmental degradation. While focusing on profits may seem beneficial for shareholders, ignoring emissions harms humans, ecosystems, and future generations. Short term profits often lead to long term social and economic costs, such as health crises and climate disasters. Ethical corporate decisions should align with sustainable business practices which protect both society and reputation. Simply prioritizing profit treats people and nature as means to an end rather than as ends in themselves. Moving on, the overview of Kant's categorical imperative. Kant proposed a concept called the categorical imperative, which is a way to determine whether actions are morally right. It has three main formulations. The first is the universal law, the second is the humanity as an end, and the third is the kingdom of ends. Across all three, the focus is on intentions and moral duty, rather than the consequences of actions. The first formulation is the universal law. It asks us to act only according to rules or maxims that could be universalized. In other words, before acting, ask yourself, could everyone act this way? If the answer is no, then the action is morally wrong. For example, lying for convenience cannot be universalized. If everyone lied, trust would vanish and society would break down. Applying this to a scenario, the maxim would be it is acceptable to emit excessive greenhouse gases to maximize profits. If all corporations acted this way, climate change would accelerate, endangering both humans and nature. Clearly, this cannot be universalized. Therefore, from the universal law perspective, corporations emitting greenhouse gases for profit is morally wrong. Sources like the IPCC 2023 report and studies on corporate social responsibility support this conclusion. The second formulation is humanity as an end. Kant tells us to treat humans always as ends in themselves and never merely as means to an end. Humans have inherent worth and should never be exploited for someone else's goals. A simple example is exploiting workers purely for profit. It is unethical because it ignores their intrinsic value. In the context of corporate emissions, Profit seeking harms humans directly and indirectly, including the future generations who will face the consequences of climate change. Using people and the environment solely for profit means treating humanity as a means to an end, which violates Kant's principle. Therefore, this behavior is morally wrong. Reports from the WHO in 2022 and other environmental health studies highlight the real life human impact of pollution and emissions. The third formulation is the kingdom of ends. Here we act as if our actions set moral laws for a community of rational beings. Moral decisions should respect all rational agents, imagining your choice as a law for everyone. For example, creating policies that are fair and could reasonably be followed by everyone would pass this test. When we look at corporate emissions through this lens, prioritizing profit over environmental responsibility fails this test. If this were a universal law, it would harm the entire community of rational beings. Therefore, corporations ignoring their duty to the environment are morally wrong according to the kingdom of ends formulation. Thus, to summarize, here's how the three formulations apply to corporate emissions. Universal law cannot be universalized, hence it's morally wrong. Humanity as an end treats humans and the environment as means, which is again morally wrong. Kingdom of ends, it fails to respect the community of rational agents, hence it's morally wrong. Across all three formulations, the conclusion is thus clear. Corporations emitting greenhouse gases for profit is ethically impermissible. Thus, coming to an end, the conclusion is Kantian ethics emphasizes duty, intention, and universal moral law. Corporate greenhouse gas emissions fail all three formulations of the categorical imperative. Corporations have a moral duty to act responsibly, protecting humanity and the planet. Ethical action is not optional, it's a duty we owe to ourselves, to the society, and future generations. Here are some references which I used to create this presentation. Thank you for your attention. I hope this presentation helped you understand how Kantian ethics can be applied to corporate responsibility. I welcome any questions which you may have.